There we go. All right, so this is second half of webinar 3. Al and I's non-fireside chat is part 1. we'll have some updated decor next round. But essentially it's kind of open. Had a couple scenarios. We'll kind of start that way. Got a whole bunch of different phone calls and reach out from people. So these are all things that happen to start. You guys can unmute yourselves as well. Feel free. This can be as interactive as we like. So our first scenario that we had asked about was Team A's goalie breaks their throat protector. You notice it as an official. What do you do? And how long do we give that goalie? We can unmute. This is going to be a long conversation. Don't.
As long as
What's the rule we got? And why? You can go either way first. So what do we call?
Play.
Yeah. So yep. Play. Let's say play stopped. It's a dead ball. Shot goes out of bounds. You notice it. What signal are we giving and what are we calling it?
It's our timeout.
Yep. So it's an official's timeout, regular, right? My time. I'm gonna give her a symbol, right? Tap her shoulders, tap her chest area, right? And then to that point, by rule, how long are we going to give the goalie to make the repair and why?
We give them 5 minutes for the repair and warm up.
Is it exactly 5 minutes?
They get a timeout too if they want.
Ooh. All right. So Teddy says unlimited. Gary's going 5. Do we have timing mechanisms in an official's timeout?
Well, we can't let them finish. We can't let them play again without it. So whatever max we give them and they exceed that, would they be subject to a penalty?
All right. So we have safety, right? In a concern, right? And so an official's timeout, now we'll change the example. A player breaks their leg and is laying on the field. Do we put a time limit on when the ambulance needs to come and get them off the field?
Nope.
Matt's saying no. Gary said, we're all saying no, right? Easy example now, right? That's a safety issue. We're not moving that player. That's kind of the easy one, right? So in a goaltender's equipment, we will then, by rule, it's reasonable. So to your point, it could be 7 minutes, could be 2 minutes, could be 5, right? And Gary, I'm picking on you because you just said 5, right? Right? Is something reasonable as long as they're going to fix it, right? And that point, we don't want to rush them either, right? So we had 2 different officials on 2 different games this happened, right? And so they said, and the other opposing coach is saying, do we have to use timeouts? Do we have, for the goalie? We do not. By rule, if we now have to put in a new goalie, especially if we go NCAA, right? If we're in that youth or in that JV area, let's use their discretion, that designated player, as Dick said, right? If it's a varsity game, we're in a different story. If we need to put in that player, then we use a timeout in that scenario, right? Because that's not being properly ready to go, having a backup goalie within a game. But again, understand the level of the game. Teams might not have backup equipment. They might not have a backup goalie for whatever reason. So it's indefinite, right? Our officials timeout, just think of that broken leg, right? Is we're not going to say you have 4 minutes. You better hope that the ambulance gets here, right? to get that player on. No, it's indefinite, whatever it may be, right? And then fortunately, both of our members said they went over, explained to the coach that we're going to give them time and we don't want them to rush either. We're good, right? So then add to that, in the one scenario, we then had the shot goes out of bounds. The official didn't notice that the throat protector had on the initial shot. So I think the scenario was there was a shot, hit the goalie in the head and neck area, right? Hits the throat guard. Fortunately, the offense picks it up, takes another shot, goes out of bounds, right? Didn't notice that the little nylon string broke on the far side. So tough for an official to see that, right? And the goalie screams at the official. No cursing, but just, sir, my helmet is broken. What are you doing? Blow the whistle, right? Malign. We'll go like non-maligning, right? By term. So do we give a penalty in this scenario?
No,
Where's our
Oh.
threshold, Mr. Murphy?
profanity.
Okay. Do we go a conduct,
Yes.
right? We might go a conduct, right? And so same thing told our member, right? Is again, it's context, right? What was the context of the game? And they said to then add to this, this was the third time they had to talk to the goalie about not yelling at them, right? That now changes the context, right? Is we might be a conduct, right? Very much so. We gave some warnings, right? And I said, is it the first one? And the same thing where, again, in that scenario, it was a little bit more of a younger and a little bit more of, I'm going to say, a medium official, veteranness wise, if that's a word, right? And the younger one said, maybe he was just upset, right? To that point. So if it's the first time, maybe you even pick up that flag, right? If that flag, start talk to your partner, especially if that goalie is going to take 5, 6, 7 minutes to repair their thing. Talk about it a little bit, right? Before you address that penalty is what's the context? Maybe you're heated as an official, right? So again, be cautious of that, right? But if it's really, really directed towards you, let's use our ladder, right? Let's try the warning first. And then if we have to go and take the ball away, and if not, let's not to get into that 30-second. But again, within context, we might have it. So our second scenario, this has been hotly debated now, back and forth between Bernard and a few people. Freddie had sent this one in today. And so wing player A, if face-off is pending, we have said down, right? And the wing player is over the line, right? So we got that play on scenario, right? And then face-off B, right, commits a hold on the actual face-off. So the whistle now blows, so we have our down set and our whistle. The face-off guy is still out. Our wing official's got to play on. And then in the course of the face-off, that player, one of the players on the face-off holds. What's our ruling? What do we have? Let's go through it. Any takers?
Rob, did you say post whistle?
You said, yep, now we're post whistle. So wing player
Okay.
A over the line, pre-whistle, whistle blows, it's still over the line, and then we have a post whistle hold. So what do we have? What's the wing player over the line? What type of foul? Personal or technical?
Is this high
Technical.
school or? Sorry,
In NCAA or NF, this is specifically NFHS, but in either, what's if somebody's over a line?
Well, let's do them separately, Rob.
Yeah,
early.
I think our reasoning still goes the same, right? The outcome at the very end. I think
No.
we're gonna go with my original point though,
Well,
Right.
okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
right? And
I
then
want to jump in on the NCAA piece, but do it as
That's fine.
NFHS first. All right.
Yep, so NFHS, so we got a technical. What's the hold?
Technical.
A technical, right? So we got
Correct.
technicals. If we then go down the route of, right, are we live ball, right? We can also determine sequence, I think, in my opinion, within this, right? And so on our sequence, right, we're gonna look at that pre-whistle violation first, right? Again, assuming on the face-off guys, jumping early, neutral zone, right? Then we go to wing violations, right? To that pre-whistle idea, and then once the whistle occurs, right, is our next sequence of event, and then we're gonna go to the hold last, right? Within that scenario, is so we should be able to determine when those occur, right? Is looking at pre-whistle to Dick's point, right? And then we go when the whistle occurs, and then a post-whistle. So within that scenario, once we have that play on as that wing official, it's going to then trump anything that comes after that outside of a personal foul, right? So in that scenario, we should never have to use AP, right? Is kind of the larger point of this, is that we should understand the scenarios, right? If we then get a scenario where we see two holds occur, so let's say one on the wing and one in the face-off, Now we get into this really gray area because now we have two live ball technicals, right? That are happening maybe exactly at the same time, believe it or not, right? Is we see the wing guy has it, we see the face-off guy, we both blow our whistles. John and I look at each other and we go, uh-oh, right? We have two different things. Now we get into that scenario, right? And I'll let John kind of explain them of, now we get into what we should do, right? NCAA, we're refacing in that scenario. Looking for the head nod, right? Correct,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
determined, right? And then at
Yeah.
NFHS,
Reface.
right, we determine, again, what's the most fair play, right? Do we want to start going technical foul, then to an AP, or should we reface? And within that rule book, it says face off pending, right? And our idea, the face off never completed. So we still have a face off, go back and reface it. John?
Yeah, exactly. That would only be the case, right? If you have live ball simultaneous fouls where they actually occurred literally at the exact same time, where you could not determine the order, right? And in that case, because the face-off hadn't completed, and the face-off was pending, but the national rules interpreter has confirmed this for NFHS, you should reface it. But in the earlier scenarios we were dealing with, you were not in a situation where you had simultaneous fouls where they occurred at exactly the same time. So the first foul actually dictated what was going to happen when the second foul occurred.
Yep.
And
So
by definition, John, a face-off is not completed until the possession call.
Or it crosses the restraining line.
Restraining line, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. So that's
Yeah.
where we determine it's still pending, right? So within that kind of ruling, we can say we can then reface within that, right? Different than that initial, right? Of a guy jumps, then we have a wing violation. The guy who jumped goes first, wing violation goes second. And then the next scenario, right? Wing guy goes over, and then we have essentially a hold in the field of play, right? The wing then it takes precedence in that sequence. So kind of think the way through that, right? They get tricky like that. We have two things. Again, John and I laughed we could have 35 faceoffs and then you have one faceoff with 5 different fouls somehow on it, right? Right. And then all of a sudden you're in that kind of area of, oh man, we need to make sure we're getting this correct, right? Especially if it's early in the game. You don't want that occurring again, and then we're calling something different, right? So think sequence, right? In all of our technical fouls, think sequence, right? And the face-offs, we have a little bit different because that wing one doesn't occur yet until that whistle actually blows. So if somebody jumps early, it's technically pre-whistle violation, right? So it's pre-whistle, as the whistle blows, post-whistle is good ways to think of it.
Hey, Rob,
Yeah, go ahead.
one observation I've seen and heard of in a couple of games that I think we should reiterate to everyone. On a face-off violation where you've killed the pending face-off, you have not had possession and you're going to award possession. I've seen twice now, you got to freeze the restraining lines.
Mhm.
These players are coming over, they're right up at the 50 or on their way there. It's really critical in an NCAA game, right? High school, probably not so much because they're not that exotic with their substitutions, but still you gotta remember to turn and just put up the stop sign, freeze the defensive end.
Yep. Chase them back, right? We have an opportunity. It's one of those correctable errors. Put them back, right? As long as we're not to delay a game, then we have a 5-second, right? Kind of idea in our brains where if they get back, we're good, right? Within that 5 seconds, we have a controlled, not a fast restart on the face-off violation, right? Chase them
Yeah.
back, which is good because when we chase them back early, they're going to remember it, right? If we then bang it and go, you came out of the box early, that's a delay game up, we're going the other way, right? You're like, what did that guy just say? I have no idea. And then we're blowing it in, right? And we're right back to that scenario of it's bad game management, right? For the extra 5 seconds, we can save ourselves a lot of headache and explain it, especially at lower level. And a lot of times that high school kid, right? You have to stay there until I blow the whistle. Why? Because I said so, right? And just move them back, get them there, then blow it in. And then the next chance you get, maybe take a little extra second to re-explain it, right? Is, hey, on a face-off violation, it's just like there's no possession yet, so you can't release, right?
Exactly.
And the kids might
right.
go, oh, okay, right? And then again, think later down the line in the season, they're going to remember that if we take an extra second to educate.
Hey, Rob.
Yep, go ahead.
Rob, on a face-off violation, let's say B violates, A's got has to restart. Do they get 5 seconds to restart?
Correct. Yep. So just like any
Okay,
other
because I had a
restart.
game Saturday where face-off guy for A, he paused and then he called a wing guy over to take the restart. And I think he got it off in 5 seconds, but it could have been longer. I was just wondering, is that a time restriction still?
Mhm.
If they're going to
Yep.
be changing players, does it
Yeah.
apply?
We call
Yeah.
that the Rob Hollow, because as a face-off guy, I never wanted the ball. It was that simple. And once I won it, I wanted anybody else to have it on the planet, right? So I would run off and my wing guy would come and grab it, right? Then we
Yeah.
can do our slow count, right? Same thing as the
Yeah,
goal,
okay.
nice and slow, right? I just throw like 1 or 2 chops out and it's like, that's like 4 seconds worth of actual time, right? But if you throw that
Okay.
slow chop, everybody in the planet knows what you're doing, right? And sometimes that's that really good game management, even on an end line. You go, blue, pick it up. Real time, right? Right? And
Yeah.
everybody knows, because I don't want to take that ball away, right? But they know, hey, I'm paying attention to I don't like this, right? And the coaches can pick it up on that, right? So I always think that's a really good nonverbal we can give, right? Where you just see that arm go out and somebody knows. And I always say there's one particular coach down here in Southern Connecticut where his team was not very good at holding the ball to begin with, but they would they'd be running, and as soon as the ball go out, they'd walk, right? And they walk and they walk and they walk, and you're like, you're killing me, right? This is taking way more. And then as soon as they did that chop, you're like, no, you can't do that to us. We're not going to get a delay again, right? He knew it, right? You're just sending that signal of we need to speed this up, right? Is next time just coach your guy to come running in, grab the ball, let's go, right? And to that point, we're not into a penalty, we're not into an adversarial scenario, and all of a sudden, we now add up the 5, 10, 15 seconds on 100 restarts in the game, and we get done 5, 10, 15 minutes early, right? It becomes really good game management. So super awesome question on that. Same thing where sometimes, especially on the first violation, to Dick and both Rich's point, you can turn around, no release, even if they don't move, no release, no release, no release. Hey, White, you got to pick up the ball. And we start doing the chop motion, right? And now everybody's like, this guy is going to be moving today, right? As we're going to pay attention to that. Same on, like I said, the same thing at face off. If you just say timer on and pump, even if that beeper doesn't go on, everybody takes notice that, hey, we're going to speed this game up today and we're going to do everything, to your point, all of our timing counts.
Rob,
Super
before
awesome.
you go on,
Yeah, go ahead.
can you go back to scenario 2 for a
Killing
moment,
me,
please?
Vernon, but I still like
The
it.
one, no, this is important. Go back one more. Go back one more. Okay. In this situation, is it appropriate under NCAA rules to use a play on for the wing player violation?
This is a good point. In NCAA rule is there is no play on. It is an immediate whistle once that wing player violates. In NFHS, we do play on. We allow it. Again, in NCAA, very short play on window to begin with, specifically in the rules. Kill it right away because we don't want the additional violation, because the wing violation in NCAA actually counts for the count. And in the event that wing player is the third team violation, the wing player goes and serves.
So it does count as a face-off violation toward the maximum of 2. So third or subsequent, yes, the wing player would serve the 30 seconds.
That was very
So
good
don't-
coaching to get me to
don't-
say exactly what you wanted me to say. It's like we rehearsed that.
Yeah.
All right, so a quick couple of these are over to NCAA, but a couple of these came up. I got all 4 of these questions, so I figured we'd just go over them quickly, right? Again, just NCAA, but good to know, right? The shot clock is at 70. We have a valid shot that hits the post and goes back to the defensive half of play, and the offensive team picks it back up. What do we reset the shot clock to?
60. 60.
So remember, we're in the defensive half. This is a tricky
Leave it
one.
alone.
No. Probably the only
The
not
shot-
correct
the
answer.
shot clock is 60 seconds.
Yeah, but where's the ball picked up? We gotta have a clearing count. So we have an 80 in the scenario of it's back in the defensive half. Only time we'll have a valid shot that triggers an 80, right? Is when it's picked back up in the defensive half by the offensive team. I'm gonna say that again, in the defensive half by the offensive team, right? So we actually go to 80 in that one. Then they have the regular clearing parameters. Once we get to 60, they need to be over the midfield, and then over and back is in effect at the 60-second mark, right? We then
And-
have,
And if it had
Go
been
ahead.
picked up by the other team, it still would have been 80 because it
Yep.
would have been a change of possession.
goes 80.
Right.
Then Freddie,
Always
I'm gonna ask you two on purpose. Shot clock at 70, we throw a flag. What do we have? Nothing. He is correct, right? We got two,
Keeps going.
right? Is teaching 101. You just re-ask the question until the student has the right answer for the right question, right? Is what you do. 3, shot clock at 70, and we have a loose ball push, right? And let's say the offense immediately picks it back up. We don't blow the whistle. What happens to the shot clock?
Oh, and 70? Was that
Yep.
70?
Yep, so we reset.
80.
Yep, and it goes to 80 because we're above 61. If that shot clock was below 60, we reset to 60. And then our last one, shot clock at 70, we have a valid shot, hits the goalie, offense picks it back up. What do we go to? Nope, well, incorrect, Mr. Naramore.
Shot clock, so you're between 60 and 80,
Yep,
right? Valid shot. Offense picks it up.
we're gonna
Oh, they
ask
don't go-
Well,
Mr. Butters.
it's either leave it alone or 80. You can't take 10 off.
We're gonna ask
60.
Mr. Butters, what is your answer? What was your original answer?
You go down to 60 seconds.
We go down to 60 seconds, see? So again,
Oh,
good
that's right.
teaching.
That's right.
You just keep
Yeah.
asking more questions till everybody gets the right answer in the class and we're good, right? We're perfect. So these are
They actually
tricky, right?
lose 10 seconds.
They actually lose 10 seconds, right? And so again, just to reiterate, these are all the weird ones on purpose, right? So the ball goes in the defensive half on a valid shot. Either team picks it up, we go to 80, right? So obviously it would be a change of possession or we need a clearing. If we have a flag down, we leave it. The flag down does not change anything. A technical foul then makes you reset it depending on where it is. Is it above 61? It goes to 80. If it's 60 or below, it goes to 60. And then in the scenario, if they shoot at any point in the shot clock and they hit a post or the goalie, I always don't like the goal. The goal always resets it, right? So that's always written in my personal one. I leave that one out, right? And the offense repicks it up. It automatically goes to 60, no matter what. They lose that time because we no longer have a clearing count.
Hey,
Sound
Rob.
good?
That one
on
seems,
those? Yeah,
that
go
one
ahead.
seems like a hard sell for the coach, but it is what it is.
And that's what it is. And you've seen scenarios to Freddie, your point at the end of the game, right? Where a scenario happens is we have a shot, the offensive right picks it up and they shoot it 70 seconds. I now reset it to 60 and then I get a flag, right? Down immediately, let's say even on a dead ball, and that stays at 60. And then it's that idea where when it's at the end of a game and you have 2 minutes left on the game clock, right? You want to kill that whole time. So that 20 seconds becomes a big deal, right? And you've seen it over and over again done correctly where they go, nope, we're at 60, we're at a reset. And then that flag goes and that reset stays. We're at 60. And similar, the other scenario is in, again, since we're NCAA, if you then take that shot and the flag is down and the goalie makes the save and catches it, we're at 60 seconds on a reset because they're viewing that save as a valid shot. And then when the goalie then catches it, it becomes, then the play is killed, right? And so the shot clock is at 60. We then go adjudicate the penalty and we look, is it a 61 or above or 60 or below? It's at 60. Even if it was 78 seconds originally when that shot was taken. So in scenarios, you can lose that time. And especially in the fourth quarter, it can be critical. And your point, coach isn't going to be happy, but it should be done that way the whole game. So it shouldn't be a surprise. They should be yelling at the player, so to speak, more than us, or the shot clock operator. Dick, did you have some?
Yeah, what the hell was it? Oh, just a reminder, I believe this is correct. So there's a man in the box. Period's winding down. Team A holds the ball. Shot clock's at whatever. Just if you have a very good shot clock operator on the sideline, hopefully they know not to reset it at the quarter, right? Because that shot clock has to stay where it is for the ensuing quarter,
Correct.
correct?
Yep,
No
it
matter what
carries
time
over.
it is, right?
Mhm.
No matter what's on the clock.
Yep, can be, we've
Right,
seen it at
okay.
80, we've seen it at 3, like you've seen it all over the place.
My concern is it's a good awareness for anybody doing an NCAA game where there is a visible clock and you've got like a student doing the clock. Beware.
Mhm.
When that horn blows at the quarter, quickly look at that shot clock and remember what it was, because you'll probably have to reset it.
Yep, and a good note for that crew too is just make sure that trail's on it, right? Is watch the shooter, but take an eye. All three of you should take an eye right at it, knowing the scenario, and say the same thing. We got to make sure, because to your point, they might reset it, right? And then we're guessing. We shouldn't really guess, because there's scenarios where it really does matter. And so these are the other ones. Oh, go ahead, John.
Do you want to, Rob, do you want to just cover the case? Just go back one, where you have the shot clocks at 70, the flag is down. The guy takes a shot, doesn't hit anything, and it just goes out of bounds. You want to cover that?
Yeah, so yep, normal scenario where same thing, it's at 70, right? The flag is down, takes a shot, does not hit anything. So we're gonna say not a valid shot within the realm of the shot clock, right? So then we're just going, is it above 61 or is it 60 or below? And in this case, it's 70, right? When the whistle is blown, right? And therefore we're gonna go to 80. And again, on that technical foul, John had a good thing on that flag down. It's when the whistle is blown, right? Is when we're going to decide when the shot clock. On the technical foul, we're going to determine when that technical foul occurs. What's the time of the shot clock? That's going to determine what our reset is. So the key to that is don't call a technical foul at 60 seconds or 61 seconds, right? Like bail yourself out a little bit, look at it, right? But look at it and see if it's 62, hey, we're at 62, that's going to go to 80. Right. And that's why we want to, in NCAA, we want to keep those play ons very, very, very short. Right. Play on, tweet, almost instantaneously, unless that kid is, again, 5 yards by himself picking up that ball. Right. Because again, these things can have pretty decent effects we see game after game. The three other quick ones we got to end all of our scenarios. We had a couple good ones, right? This was in my game is, I'll go both number 1 and number 2. The first one was if it doesn't reset, right, by rule, we're going to wait a maximum of 5 seconds. So once it hits what in our brains, if it were to be hitting 75, we should blow the whistle. So you can allow the play to continue. If it doesn't reset to what we need to, we blow the whistle unless there is an imminent scoring opportunity in progress, meaning that shot is going to the cage. And so you blow it, and it has to go to either 60 or to 80. They have taken out the guessing of numbers at this point. So it's either 60 or 80 on that original reset. So in the scenario of goalie makes a save, we go 80 seconds, we start our 4 count for the goalie, they come out of the cage, right? They throw the ball to the defenseman starts running up the field. I'm the single, I look over the shot clock and go, wow, that shot clock is still at 14 seconds. That's not good, right? I don't think it took that long, right? We blow our whistle. We give the team that had the ball exactly where we blew the whistle, and it goes all the way back to 80 seconds, regardless where they are. They could be all the way down at GLE. It goes to 80 seconds, right? The most common one we see is they reset it. A lot of the high school clocks aren't synced, so they reset it and it doesn't start, right? So it's just at 80, it's at 80, it's at 80, it's at 80, it's at 80. Tweet, my time, shot clock. Hey, we're at 80, make sure we start, please, right? Ball's going to be here, get your subs, everything like that. The other one we had in the game, we were at Westminster, and they have a awesome Wi-Fi setup that with batteries that don't work very well. And the shot clocks decided that they just were tired and wanted to take the rest of the night off. So they just shut off mid-game. They just said, bloop, that's it. We go, that's not good, right? blow your whistle. If that makes sense, make sure the ball isn't in flight in terms of going to the goal, blow your whistle, calmly jog over, right? Talk to the shot clock operator. You don't talk to the head coaches, talk to them. What's going on? What happened, right? And they'll usually point fingers and say the other person did it, right? And it's not me. That's fine. Talk to them, see if they can reset it. In the scenario, what are your options? Your options are simple. You need to find somebody with a cell phone, right? Or a stopwatch. The chance of you finding a stopwatch in this day and age is 0. So if they have a cell phone, excellent. It's usually a teenager, right? They get to use their cell phone now at the table. Rewarded, right? Only in the manner we need. We will then bring that shot clock person into the table area in front of the table, make sure they don't get run over, and they will call every 10 seconds out for the remainder of the game. It is terrible, but that is a prescribed procedure. Most of the time they know that at Fields. At Westy, he said, I will, before we even got over there, he said, I will call out every 10 seconds. I already got my phone ready. And you said, this is not your first rodeo. And he said, nope, it's not, right? So it happens, right? The key is they want to be loud so both coaches can hear, so then they can relay it to everybody. And the other one you want to also say is to that trail official. That's the one who's really got to pay attention, right? Especially if it's lower clock, into that clearing count too. That's the only person that's going to be able to hear the person in the table area. The other one we had a very, very helpful coach that every time they thought it was a valid shot, they yelled reset, and they turned around and looked directly at the shot clock operator. Bob's laughing at this one. They looked at the shot clock operator and said reset, reset, and they gave the symbol. So they get 20 points on their NFHS or NCAA test if they want to come join our board. We'll give them a little head start, right? And so they're every time reset, 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 right? So the crew, I thought, handled it extremely well, right? They blew the whistle at the dead ball, right? Because the ball went out of bounds. And they said, Coach, you cannot be calling reset, right? And it's the same thing again. I had said this before in football, they call it discernible signals, right? You can't use the same cadence calls as the other team to try to trick them. Same thing in lacrosse. You can't be yelling reset. You can't be yelling 80 or 60 as play calls, right? It confuses the shot clock operator. The clock operator, you need to go remind them they are part of our crew. They actually have a longer explanation of their job than the assistant coaches and the head coaches. Remember, the assistant coaches have 0 explanation in the rule book. They don't exist in the rules, according to us, right? But the head coaches have very small. The shot clock operator actually has a full page, and the timer has actually more than the head coach as well, right? So they're part of our crew. Remind them of that. Only on our signals, right? And it's specifically in the rule. If the coach continues to do that, use your ladder. Warn them, don't immediately go to flag, right? If it happens again, take the ball away, right? Send the signal, don't be confrontational, right? I would give them 2 warnings, to be honest with you, and do a strike 3 kind of scenario, right? Is the first time, right, he does it, we correct it. The second time, again, coach, that's it. Like, you got to lay off of it. We're serious, right? If they're super irate, different story, right? Maybe throw a flag, but then move to coach the next time we do it, it's a flag. We can't be resetting the shot clock twice every single play. This is going to be a very long day, right? And we assumed the crew had mentioned it was early, so I would assume this is first or second quarter, different than the last 20 seconds in the game, right? Is we can reset it once, calm them down, go from there. But again, remember, the shot clock operator and the timekeeper is part of our crew. So just remind them, and again, be nice if they're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, right? They have adults yelling at them. They're going to do whatever the adult is yelling, right? Sometimes it's not their fault. So come back, tell them you have their back. Hey, again, just look at us. And again, in the 3-man crew, all you got to do is look at that trail official, right? That trail official should be mirroring every call for you. So those are our scenarios. We'll go through a couple minutes if you want to on this one. We'll just keep recording. John came up with a couple quiz answers, or quiz questions rather, and we had sent them out. So we'll go through them for you if we're good with that. Ball goes out of bounds at Team B's coach's area, and the ball is going to Team B. I had this on Saturday, and so then B1 gets thrown the ball from the head coach. We're going to start on 1. In NFHS, can we do this?
I would say yes. Because it doesn't necessarily mean you're restarting it. You're just getting the ball to the who's going to have it on the whistle.
And think of, could this be an advantage, disadvantage scenario? In general,
Depends where player B1 wants to start.
yeah, let's say they're running, like, I'll just give you a scenario, the ball trickles out of bounds, A1 and B1 are running after it, right? A1 is
Yeah.
10 yards into the sideline, B1 throws a ball to B1, B1's now on the field.
But
Got a
A's
little
still
bit-
out of bounds.
Yeah, we got a little bit of an advantage, right? If maybe that player's on the field, maybe. John, remind me, I know NCAA, NFHS,
There's nothing in there in NFHS, but it raises the question, would Team B's coach have thrown the ball to a player from A if it went out of his coach's area, if the A wanted a quick restart? Probably not.
right? So in NCAA, you cannot do this, right? And our scenario was just as that. The ball went out of bounds on a sideline in the box. The two players ran for it. Coach took a new ball and threw it to the kid at the midfield. And the kid said, I'm ready. And you said, not a bad strategy, but you can't do that, right? And the same, he goes, I'm ready, right? And to the NCAA rule, it says I can restart wherever I like because I'm in the offensive half. No. A, you can't throw it, and B, it's an out of bounds, right? We're putting you in the defense, but you need to be right next to that sideline, right? It's not that scenario of you can start anywhere in that offensive half. So in that, if a bench player does it, do we have an issue?
Same issue.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
issue. NCAA is no. NFHS is silent on it. Be cautious, right? If you see a clear advantage, I pump the brakes a bit, right? If it's the rolling of the ball or the guy just underhands it right to him a yard away, I think we're okay. And NFHS, we're talking about that actual throw for the advantage. Then,
Hey, Rob,
John, yep, go ahead.
real quick, when you saw the scenario, I thought about the validity of the ball as opposed to anything else. So in NFHS, don't even worry about that. For example, if you had a away team pick up a ball from their bags, and so we don't know whether it's certified or no sack or not. Don't is that what we're worrying about?
Yeah, I think you could have the reasonable, any ball could technically not be certified, right? In that scenario, you're not really checking any of them. To that point, the same thing, anyone on the sideline could be any ball. Once we kind of start the game and any face-offs is when we want to check for that NOXI certification. But again, we don't want to get overly concerned to that point. I would say the same thing, anything in the bench area, it's not a bad point, has a chance of not being a correct ball, right? I think at this point in life, I lived through as a head coach the NOXI nightmare as it was, because there was a million balls that high schools bought because they were offering balls for literally $20 a box, and every high school bought it. At this point, manufacturing wise, every ball's got a NOXI stamp on it that I've seen in the last 5+ years. I'm not saying it can't happen, but to your point of, I think we're pretty down on the list of possibilities, if that makes sense. It's a good point though.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and we're never going to chase after the ball. Once it goes in, we're not going to blow the whistle and say, can I see it, and look at the stamp, right? We're just going to assume that it is good. If at some point we notice it, we want to take that ball out of the game. Make sense on that one?
Hey,
Yes.
Rob, just real quick on the whole thing, it's advantage, disadvantage for
Mhm.
all three of these examples, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And then John just likes throwing in because by rule, it's a non-play, right? Whatever it's called, non-playing player, playing personnel.
Yeah.
It's your trainer one.
Same rule, same
Yep.
rule. You can't throw it to them. They're supposed to just pick it up from the ground.
All right, so we got goalkeeper B1 makes a save and has possession of the ball inside the crease. B1 runs the ball out of the crease, so the goalie runs the ball out of the crease. Then the attack player runs after B1 and steps in the crease. We're going to assume that B1 still has possession of the ball.
And by the way, this happened in the Syracuse Notre Dame game the other day. And this question was written before that game.
Would we agree with Mr. Naramore?
The flag down.
Yeah, we got a flag down, right? So we have possession, goaltender's out of the crease, ball's out of the crease, and now we have a player go into that crease we have a flag down.
And what
In
do you
both.
announce as the and what do you announce as the penalty?
Grease violation.
Play
What,
again.
what signal are you giving to the table?
I've had this call and I call it a grease violation.
Illegal procedure.
That's what I'd go with. Yeah.
This is the, hey, Bernard, what do you got? You can report it. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And he goes, but I'm the lead. And I go, you just get over there. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I would go with, I agree with that. And that's what they
Yeah.
did in the Syracuse game, illegal procedure, and then said it was a grease violation.
All
With a
right,
flag down 30 seconds?
Yep.
Yep.
Flag down 30 happens rarely. And I always tell my extremely quick story. I had an attackman who picked up the game. He was on our squad and got to play on senior day. And magically in the last 3 minutes of the game, we put him in an attack and got not one, but two running through the crease during possession calls. So in his career, he averages about, I think we determined 30, or no, he's going to have 120 running through the crease calls in his career, right? Per game is what his average ended up being. We're like, you never see it in your career. And one kid had it twice in a game. And the official just looked at it and said, don't you teach these kids anything? And I said, absolutely not. Nope, no way. So in this scenario, goalkeeper B1 makes a save, has possession of the ball in the crease, and A1 then steps in the crease. What do we have?
Play on.
Grease violation. It'd be a free clear.
That's a play on.
Or play on until A, B, or C happens.
Correct. And so A, B, or C would be either he makes that outlet pass, right? Or he runs it out of the crease in that scenario.
So
Good.
he makes the outlet pass and the pass gets dropped.
Then we give him a Freddy. So then it goes back to the midline, right? As a free clear, same on our
Free
goaltender
clear.
interference, right? Then we get the free clear in that scenario. 4, ball is loose, close to the midfield line on team A's defensive half of the field. B1 steps offside, go play on. A1 quickly picks up the ball and runs up the field while B1 is still offsides. What's our ruling? And Brian, I'm gonna let you take this because I don't remember what your angle was on this one
Okay.
outside of,
So yeah, so you got the play on, he picks the ball up, and B1's still offside. So the question is, do you do anything? Does it matter what B1 does? What are you thinking about at this point?
Hey, it matters what B1 does, which will determine what you will do.
Right. And
If B1 returns to be onside, we've got nothing. Your play on is essentially ended. However, if B1 decides to make a play or runs down, now you have a flag down because you have possession.
right?
yeah, so it's really a question of not penalizing B1 twice for both the play on and the flag down, unless while he's still offside, he participates in the play in some form, in which case he could be subject to a flag.
Right, similar to what we're seeing, especially in NCAA and at the college levels, what we're seeing with the helmets coming off, right? Because they're not worn properly of the chin straps. And we're now, if that other team is in possession, what the player does matters. Are they going back to pick up their helmet and they're outside the scrimmage area? We'll allow that if it occurs quickly, right? Or are they going to participate in the scrimmage area without legal equipment? We might have a flag on that player in that scenario. Right? So again, getting into those little nuances, which is awesome. And then 5, this one hopefully is a little bit easier, right? A1 has the ball, B1 initiates contact with his head to A1's chest, above the waist and below the shoulders.
Spearing.
Considered spearing.
So we
Which
got
is a one.
spearing, yeah.
Locked in.
And what is, this is because John updated the NFHS versus NCAA comparison. So what do we have?
What's the ruling under NFHS?
NFHS is supposed to be.
3 minutes locked in.
Be a locked in penalty.
It's locked in 2.
How many
3
minutes?
minutes in high school.
B1 is a 3.
2 or 3?
It's gotta
Yeah.
be 2. Gotta be a minimum of 2.
Yep,
2 minutes.
2 or
Yep.
3
Minimum.
locked in. Yep. How about NCAA?
1 minute locked was.
Yeah.
1, 2, or 3. Yeah, minimum of 1. So you could give
One
one
it is.
non-releasable in NCAA, but under NFHS, you have to give at least 2 non-releasable.
You can never have a 1 minute penalty that's locked in NFHS.
Except
for
for, John and I
yeah.
yelled about this all day, except for
Illegal
unsportsmanlike
equipment.
and
illegal
unsportsmanlike conduct. Those are the only two.
unsportsmanlike
No, well,
John and I argued all day about that. I said, if you're calling illegal equipment again, I'm not working with you. That's it. We're done. And so appreciate everybody joining us tonight. So again,
Rob, I got one for you.
go ahead. Can I at least can I at least show my fun slide?
Yeah, sure.
I have a little bit of fun in life, right? Apparently, it's they made a children's book about me. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, he was going to send it in to you, or I asked him to send it in to you. So one of our compatriots was observing East Lyme Worcester game. Situation was East Lyme has the ball in the attack area, B1/. Ball happens to exit his stick and goes out of bounds on the end line.
Okay.
So the penalty gets reported, and unfortunately, the ball is restarted on the end line.
In the alley.
That Worcester comes around a couple of passes, they shoot and score a goal. So now they're walking up to the mid stripe. Coach calls for a double horn. They agree that it was wrong. It was wrong. They had to take the goal off, right? They had to take the goal away. Now the question is, in an NFH, in any game, can you add time back to the clock?
No,
No,
Because you also have a penalty.
no.
no.
Yeah, I don't think you do. I think it's within the spirit of between from one dead ball to another. You may, if it's one of those correctable errors, you can
So
fix that. I don't
consider-
think we can add time though.
Consider this as a 1-goal game at the end, and you're under like a minute to go. Woohoo!
Yeah, that's where again, and then John and I keep talking about this of like just have that courage as that younger official or that trail official to just blow the whistle, even if you don't know what the correct thing is. If you see something, say something, blow your whistle and just get your partner close to you, right? Like run over and be like, hey, be like, I don't think that's right. Like even if you don't
Right.
know what the answer is, right? Like just by just it
the
allows
restart
that.
the restart was incorrect. Should have been in the alley. That was the point.
And so
And,
that was one other scenario I got texted today was the same thing where fortunately this happened today and it was over a 10-goal differential. So we'll frame it that way. The face-off players were facing the wrong way. The face-off player that won the face-off for some unbeknownst reason starts running in the direction that he was facing, right? Nobody can test him. The goalie then moves out of the way and the kid shoots into an empty net and starts celebrating, right? Because he shot on his own goal, right? And so everybody just got out of his way, right? And so they then, to your exact point, they noticed that it was incorrect that they had faced off, right? Before anybody said something. So they said, my time, right? We have a correctable error on our hands. We didn't notice they were facing the incorrect way. So we're going to reface and take the goal off, right? And to your point, the context makes life a lot easier in my scenario than it does yours, simply because it's a 10-goal plus game sometime in the third or fourth and the younger guys are playing anyway, if you will, right? I'm probably embellishing a little bit, but you get my point. To your point, it's a 1-goal game with a penalty, pretty tough to be making that error, right?
Because I guess it was Danny Gonsalve that observed this. And, there's nothing in the book that says you can or cannot add time back in a game. I was always taught you never do. You never do.
No, that's not totally correct. If you had a clock that was continued to run, you can restore time. In other words, clock
You can go
operator
back.
fails.
Yeah.
fails to stop the clock, you can add time, but not in a correctable error situation by the official.
Right, right. And the other thing which I had forgotten, and I was reminded in this scenario, a double horn, which I think I've had one maybe in my 18 years.
If they have the
double
horn on
but
the
if-
field, right?
Yeah, if the coach is wrong, it's a charge timeout.
Correct.
No,
Correct.
well, hold on.
I think so, right? Go ahead, John.
No. Give me the scenario again.
So let's say the coach does a double horn. He goes,
To
that
count the
was
long-
a shot. That
to
was a
count
shot
long-
on goal. He starts to argue judgment instead of.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you meant he was asking for like a count of long crosses or something
No,
like
no, no,
that
no.
for a double horn. Okay.
No, a double horn, yeah.
Yeah.
If the rule that he says that we got wrong
Yeah.
is now a correct rule, he's
Right.
charged a timeout.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if he has
Okay,
no
yeah.
timeouts left.
Penalty.
Yep. Technical
Yep.
foul. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, guys, can I go back to that scenario you talked about where we started the play in the wrong place? And you're gonna tell me that I can't go back and reset the clock and reset the penalty time and put them in the right place? You're gonna say we burned 15 or 20 seconds and that's tough?
Yep.
Ouch.
That was the
I
point,
keep
Ted,
thinking
yeah.
of fairness from Tom Abbott.
And I would say it's the same thing of, again, especially in the last quarter, if it's a close game, it's the whole game, right? As I want to say that, but to be super frank about it, that last 2 to 3 minutes, we got to be dialed in, right? Is that error can't happen in the fourth. That error, if it does happen, needs to occur in the first or the second quarter, to your point, where it has a substantially less effect on the outcome of the game. Right. And again, as we always say, and the same thing I said, coaching is just one call doesn't lose me the game. Right. We played 60 minutes. We had a lot of errors. Right. And it happens on different parties, but it can't be that is the reason why everybody's going home not happy. Right. On one side of the field. Right. So to your point, you got to dial it in. And I think, and then the same thing, if you catch it right away, I think we have a little bit of a different scenario, in my opinion. Right. If it's 1 second off the clock, right, reset that 1 second. Right. We caught it almost immediately. Right. We're good. I think
Yeah.
in Dick, I'll again elaborate. If it's a full minute off of the clock, right, before that next dead
Right.
ball where that double horn occurs, I think you have a tough justification to put that kid back in the penalty box. And I'm purposely putting it past so there he killed the penalty, right, in that scenario.
Right. Yeah, and just for Ted's edification, I'm not sure, I don't recall from Danny when that occurred in the game and what the situation was in the game. I think it was a fairly close game from what he said for a while, but East Lyme pretty much whomped him in the end. So it was a Worcester goal that was taken off. And at the end of the day, it wouldn't have helped him that much anyways.
Yeah.
So unfortunately.
Awesome. We got any others from the field,
No,
so to speak?
Yeah, real quick, Rob.
Yeah.
Coming back to where we started. The scenario you spelled out interestingly happened to me yesterday. I'm watching the wing folks, and the wingman jumps. Just as I'm about to say or do something, my partner who's doing the face-off blows the whistle and calls the other team. And I just wasn't quite sure what to do. So in this case, I didn't do anything. I just assumed that the face-off guy has precedence. But what I should have done, if I understood you correctly, it should have been in re-face-off.
Should have been, or I would say even first
Well,
is
hold on. What was the infraction that the face-off official was calling?
I don't know, John. I'm assuming he someone probably jumped or something like that.
Okay, because if he jumped, right, you ignore the wing violation. Using Rob's hierarchy of the sequence, right? The face-off jumping too soon takes priority over any wing violation. You would ignore the wing violation in that.
Okay.
I would jump in even sooner than that and say, if you had 2 flags down, will you assume that your partner has the same flag that you do?
No.
Right? Never, right? We never want to
Mhm.
assume that, right? Because if you have one kid who's decapitated and then you have a second kid who's decapitated, you go, we both had the same flag, right? Probably have two flags, right? And I'm
Yeah.
purposely using extreme, right? To then illustrate, right? In the scenario of that's where we can get into trouble, right? Then we blow the whistle, tweet. I actually had a play on, right? Hey, Phil, what did you have as a face-off official? And you go, I had them jumping early, right? And then you go, okay, it's sequence. Face-off happens, the violation actually goes first, wing second. Hey, we're gonna go white ball. Coaches, it's white ball, right? And then everybody knows what we're doing to that point. And then to John's point, right, it could be the face-off wing violation, and then it could be a field hold, I'll call it, right, a hold in the field, right? But to that point, we generally don't want to assume, right? So really good learning opportunity here, right, is always okay. If you're not sure, and this is what I see with a lot of the younger guys, sometimes I see it even on a crew, right? Your partner just points to something, tweet. What did you have, right? Because if I'm asking that as your partner, there's probably a whole slew of people on a bench behind me that also don't know what's occurring, right? And then especially if I'm on the bench side and then just being selfish on this, right? And the same thing, I don't want my partner doing this either. I now have to then explain it to the 50 people who are yelling at me behind me. Well, what did your partner call? Well, I don't know. Right? It doesn't look great, right? So the tweet, hey, Phil, what'd you have, right? And you can go, I had a wing violation. And you go, okay, no problem. I had this, we're going that way. Are you good, right? You're good. And then it also gives you the chance too. You get to run down the field, right? Where you need to go, if you need to cover a goal, right? Because you might be thinking we're going one way versus the other way. And in that scenario, right, we might have, hey, I thought it was one, now we're pointing the other way. We might have to give time for subs, right? We had that scenario the other night where same thing, they thought it went out of bounds. My partner, this is a 3-man game, so a little bit different, had a procedure for playing without the stick because he noticed that the guy dropped the stick. I couldn't see it because I had the player's back, right? So now we're changing the way we're going and players just start running, assuming that it's a sideline play, right? So in that thing, hey, we're going this way, right? I pointed one way, he pointed another way. Let's give it a half a second to make sure everybody's set correctly, right? By rule, give that extra couple seconds. It doesn't have to be the full 20, right? But coach, you good? You're good. Let's start going, right? Is again, just to that, it always goes back to that communication. I was exactly the same way when I started. It's the same thing. My partner, especially the veteran guy, would call something, be like, I'm sure he's right. Like, it's that nice blind trust in the veteran. You're like, he has to be right. He's the veteran. That's what we're here for, right? And then and then that's the scenario you generally talk about at the first quarter of, hey, did you have something? Because I saw the wing guy jumped and I only had a hold, right? And then you're like, right? So that's a really great learning opportunity of do the, hey, what'd you have? I had a play on. You might not have seen it or heard it, but guess what I got up now, right? It's that scenario where you can always be late to the party in your call, right? Same thing as if this is the last point on, it's the same thing when you drift to the end line for that out of bounds call, right? Is nobody's watching you take those 4 or 5 extra steps, but when you get there and you turn around, hey, we're going this way and we're going goalie. Hey, coach, look where I am. I'm standing on the end line. I wasn't there when I blew my whistle the first time, right? But I'm here and now I get to sell that call. So same thing, even if you're late or you didn't say something, I did have a play on, right? And you guys missed it because my arms have been here the whole time. How'd you miss it, right? So sometimes it's that really easy one where you can then resell the call of I did have something, and you're human, it's going to take you a second or two.
Okay, thanks.
Good question though, super awesome. Anything else we got?
Could we have those shot clock scenarios maybe documented on something we can print? That'd be something nice to, look at for doing a game.
John, did we pull that memo from last year? I feel like most of those have those, but we can type some up for you too.
Yeah, I don't know which I didn't find that memo that I was looking for with that. Maybe you
We can
have
put
it.
some together for you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
You know where it might be? Actually, it might be in the, I might be able to pull it off the TIE website for the manual. I know the
Yeah, I
NCAA
think
has the shot clock.
I
operator
think it's
stuff,
in
right?
there, Rob. Yeah.
Yeah. I
The
can
tie
pull it from there.
procedures.
What were you looking for?
The
just-
shot clock procedures.
The
Right.
issue, Steve, when a valid shot, even if the clock is at 70, a valid shot resets to 60. Just so that everybody understands that.
Yeah,
I think-
that I believe is on the tie site.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll pull it. I think it's on the NCAA list too, because that's where we generally pull it
That's
from.
where that's where it was copied from, Robbie.
Are you
I got
talking about
I got the women's
table-
one printed out.
The table crew reference sheet? Is that what you were
Yeah,
referring to?
and there's a specific shot clock reference sheet, I thought. Are they one and the
Okay.
same? I think the table
don't
crew is
know.
different. I thought,
Okay,
but
yeah.
I might be
I don't know.
incorrect. We'll find it for you, Freddie. We'll put it up on the shared drive.
Yeah, I found it, Steve. It's on page 2 of those procedures. The officials will signal a reset the possession clock to 60 seconds after a rebound is possessed by the shooting team in their offensive end, or B, any penalty. Yeah. If it's below.
No, any
60.
penalty if it's below 60.
Below 60. Yeah, and they didn't break that out separately, but that's a good clarification.
Because the clarification came out afterwards. After that was printed.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. But yeah, Steve, you're gonna get that for Rob, that
I got
procedure? Or, well,
it. It
Rob
is the
can-
table crew reference sheet, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Rob can get it.
I can,
outside.
Yep, we got it. We'll put any edits. I'll task
Very
Brennan with
cool.
that. He loves spending 30 hours of his day correcting NCAA
you.
memos.
Thank you. Yep.
Oh, I know another procedure. It's an old one, and I haven't heard boo about it in several years. So at halftime's ending. There used to be a protocol, correct me if I'm wrong, with 4 minutes left. A coach comes on the field or approaches the officials and has a rules question, not just some, hey, do you think the weather's going to be good? But he has a rules question. Do we still have that 4-minute protocol where, okay, coach, just a second, let me get coach B over here as well?
So the rule is still in there, and John will tell you the exact one, but having the other representative available is still in there. I remember seeing that the other day. I know in the NCAA is 4, and it definitely used to be, because I've used that before in scenarios, which doesn't make a lot of people happy, but you use it to do for other strategy reasons. And I would highly encourage, regardless what we say, I did have a scenario last year, 2 very irate coaches in a scenario where we said the same thing. We just followed the same procedure to make it right formal. And again, the point of doing it at 4, you give them 6 minutes to cool off, right? And your idea is, and this was a scenario, again, it just kept escalating from there. But they said, I have 7 things to then tell you did wrong, is how we started this conversation. And even the other
great.
coach said, you need to ask a question about a rule. And the coach said, well, no, I don't. I just want to tell you what you did wrong. And the other coach was like, let me try explaining again on behalf of the officials. You need to ask a literal rule clarification, and please just put it in the form of a question. And he goes, but he got to complain. He goes, yeah, but I felt like there was an opportunity. And again, I'll just frame it in a good question of the coach said, I felt like there was a time when my attackman had the ball and there was a defensive player near him, and the check started in the stick but carry through into the face mask. Do you feel that a slash should have been called or not? And can you further explain the elements needed within a slash, right? So takes the complaint and you escalate it to a question, right? And then we can go through, right? If this is what we saw, or if we didn't feel it was violent, and you give them some elements, right? As versus on the flip side of, you just did this, and this wrong. We're not going to listen to that, right? Because it's not about just berating. We're not allowed to berate the coaches. I say that all the time, right? Like, we can say, oh, I would have ran that, right? We can't do that. I believe, I remember at some point we had done that, and John, maybe you had time to look, and I'm purposely stalling a little bit for you.
Yep. So here's what is in the book. There is in the book that the timekeeper is supposed to notify both teams of 4 minutes remaining before the start of the second half and sounding a horn. So that is still in the book. The section on communicating with officials says only the head coach will communicate with the officials, and officials shall address questions from the head coaches during halftime. A representative from each team may be present while these questions are discussed. Officials should never entertain any questions until a representative of the other team is given the opportunity to be present. However, I don't believe that there is a 4-minute rule anymore with regard to that. It's not in there. But to your point, why do you need to do that at the beginning of halftime? It just says that they may be allowed to ask questions during halftime. So to your point, why not just wait a little while so things can cool down?
Yeah, just
On the,
cool.
on the other hand, Rob, it's possible that a coach wants a clarification so he can instruct his team appropriately during halftime. So I think you gotta kind of take that with a grain. Sometimes you'll have both coaches right after at the half. They're ready to talk, not argue, but just talk for a clarification. And why not do it then before they break off and go to their respective teams? So yeah, I mean, again, how precise, how critical do we have to be during that situation if you can take care of it right away? But I agree, hot and heavy, give them some time to cool off.
Correct. And those even, I always say your good game management is, to Steve's point, within reason. If that assistant coach comes to you right at halftime, says, I just have a quick rule clarification. It was on that face-off violation. We just want to know what it was, right? Entertain that question, right? And again, right, context to that of, that assistant coach is going to go to that face-off crew and tell that face-off crew exactly what they did wrong, right? To your point. And the same thing in my scenario was, it was immediately, well, I get to talk to you at halftime and tell you what you did wrong. And you're like, and my partner and I looked at each other and we said, cool, we're going to go to the bathroom. We're also going to get a cup of coffee and we're going to be back exactly at 0. And so the same thing, we did it at 4, to your point of people don't realize it, right? I think it's that good mechanic if you to then embellish a little bit, right? A little bit of a white lie of, hey, by rule, we're at 4 minutes, right? Not a bad thing to buy you some time to hopefully have somebody cool off, as we said. And in that scenario too, we allowed, right, for that express purpose of, we allowed the assistants to come with the head coaches. And again, that kind of backfired on us, but the thought was the assistants seemed to be the more calm one, right? So sometimes if you bring a second party involved, we say, you can't say anything, but please listen, right? Try to use those different game management techniques the best you can. And again, in this particular scenario that happened last year, was just nothing we did worked, and we ended up throwing a lot of flags on the coaches throughout the entirety of the game, and eventually both sides as well. So sometimes you're just in those. They were, I do have to say, in the defense, and I was an idiot too, I will never say I won't, especially when I first started, it was a very new coach versus a very newer coach. So 2 of them were a little bit inexperienced, and I was definitely as the same level of idiot as they were, in a nice way, right? Of your emotions take the best of you sometimes, especially when you're young and you're trying to win and make a name for yourself. Of try to manage it a bit. And as we said, like, it was just that simple. We just kept telling them, just phrase it as a question. It was like Jeopardy, right? And all you want to do is make a Trebek joke, and you're like, don't use. And again, don't use comedy in that scenario. Just be calm. Just try to talk to them. Just try to get them. Try to get out of there. Right, but answer their question is the point. You don't want to ignore them or diminish them or demean them or anything like that. So,
Yeah, the typical one too. It's usually, hey, could you watch the high hits in the second?
yeah, like entertain those comments.
They're like advice. They're advising you. Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing is you don't have to go crazy. Like I said, as I've been more harsh sometimes if they're really irate like that. Coach, it's got to be a question. We're going to wait a bit. We'll meet you at, the 4-minute mark or the 3-minute, and we're going to have a rep from the other team, give an opportunity that they can come over and talk, right? And you just kind of go that way. And again, as I grew up through coaching, you realize what they mean, right? It's when the teacher said, we're not doing this now, right? Like, heed that advice sometimes because there's a reason for it, versus you're kind of at the level of it's not going to be tolerated. So super good. Anything else we got?
Good.
Awesome. Well, again, we appreciate you
Go
jumping on.
Huskies.
Yeah, it's 9:20, so you got plenty of time to go get any refreshments you like, which is great. And again, let us know. John and I are both here. You guys had a million questions this week, which is awesome. We love it. Keep sending stuff. You can send it text, email, John or myself, either one. The big key to that too, and I'll use John as a great example of something happened, go back to your crew. Go talk to your partner. If you get the answer, don't just keep it yourself. Tell somebody else, right? Tell the person you worked with, and then tell the next in that pregame, right? The next game, use that scenario. Say this is what it is, right? And that's how we build our knowledge base through just through storytelling, right? In that manner. So again, this will be up tomorrow, and we'll see you next Monday. Topic to be announced, guest speaker to be announced. Sound good? Enjoy basketball, enjoy lacrosse, go have some fun. It might actually be 60 and not raining for once soon. So we'll close.
Go
We'll
UConn.
close.
Yep.